I keep getting all these questions about using AI like ChatGPT and other tools in your writing and whether or not it's okay, it's ethical, whether or not you should. And then recently, NaNoWriMo came out and said that they support using AI in writing your books during their programs. And so this kicked up a whole nother firestorm, and I started getting even more questions about this. So let's talk about AI in writing and whether or not you should use it in your work. My name is Tim Grahl. I'm the author of 6 books, including The Shithead, Running Down a Dream, and Your First 1,000 Copies. My partner, Sean Coyne, is the creator and founder of StoryGrid, and he's a writer, editor, and researcher with over 30 years of experience. And everything we teach here at StoryGrid is based on his extensive knowledge and expertise. Also, I should say here, I'm the CEO of StoryGrid, where we help writers build the skills, write a book, and leave their legacy. I'm also the publisher at our publishing house, and so this hits me in all kinds of ways. The idea that, first of all and foremost, I'm a writer. I want to write great books. Also, I run a training company for writers, and we have a publishing house where we want to publish stuff that writers create. And so this idea of AI getting involved in this hits me on all of those different levels. AI has actually been around a really long time. People started working on it in the mid-1900s. Different companies have been using AI in all kinds of ways for decades. This is not necessarily new ideas of using AI in things. And yet, at the end of 2022, an early version of ChatGPT 3.5 just roared into the marketplace, and all of a sudden, we were all aware of it. And we could talk about why that is. It mainly, in my opinion, comes down to the fact that it was so conversational, so easy to interact with. It was the first version of an AI that normal people like you and me could actually use. And I'll tell you, as a writer, this completely freaked me out. I started having all kinds of existential dread around this stuff. In fact, I think the exact quote I said to my wife at one point is that if a computer learns how to write a great book before I do, I'm just going to kill myself. Now, I'll come back to that sentiment shortly and talk through what I did, but I want to put a little bit of a caveat here. So I'm not talking about using AI tools like ChatGPT to do light research, to look up definitions of words, kind of assistant type stuff. And we're not really touching on the ethics of that either. We're talking specifically about using AI to write your entire book or portions of your book, or basically do the writing for you. That's the subject of this particular video. And then even before I can get into ChatGPT and AI and these tools and using it for your writing, we've got to talk about the 2 different ways that you can approach writing. So let's look at this first approach. Now, I've been in the publishing world for about 15 years, and I was around when KDP and the Kindle first really hit the marketplace, and writers were just so excited because for the first time, they could get past all those gatekeepers in traditional publishing and actually start self-publishing their work in a meaningful way. And so all of a sudden, all of this stuff just exploded, and there was like this gold rush into publishing books and putting books out as fast as possible. And I think the best encapsulation of all of this crazy time comes from a book that was published on January 1, 2014. Sean M. Platt and Johnny Truitt published a book titled Write, Publish, Repeat: The No Luck Required Guide to Self-Publishing Success. And this is from the description of the book on Goodreads. In 2013, Johnny B. Truitt and Sean Platt published 1.5 million words and made their full-time livings as indie authors. In Write, Publish, Repeat, they tell you exactly how they did it, how they created over 50 independent franchises across 50-plus published works, how they turned their art into a logical, sustainable business, and how any independent author can do the same to build a sustainable, profitable career with their writing. And on Goodreads, it credits Sean Platt with 347 books as author credits. So that's how many books he has as published on Goodreads under his name. Now, this is the first approach to writing. You treat it like a job, like a job, an entrepreneurial venture where you're churning out as many words, as many books as you possibly can, and you really learn to play the algorithm, to play the game of KDP and Amazon's algorithm and advertising and pages read and figuring out all of this stuff and keep churning out as much as you possibly can. This is a very kind of capitalistic, entrepreneurial way of just approaching a marketplace. It's really no different than approaching any other marketplace. You try to get as many products out as you possibly can and make as much money off of them in as little time as possible. It's all about figuring out what the market/algorithm wants to give to readers and then playing that game. Books are commodities in this way of thinking. They're not really pieces of art or pieces of work. They're just commodities for me to create, to put into the marketplace, to make as much money as fast as possible. So that's the first way you can approach this idea of writing. So now let's look at the second approach to writing. And to do that, we've got to talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This is a martial art based on grappling and submissions. I've been practicing it for 7.5 years. I'm currently a brown belt and I absolutely love it. Now, I don't make any money doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In fact, it costs me a lot of money. Now, what do I get out of this? Well, a lot of times I'm beaten up, I'm bruised. There's videos on this channel where I have black eyes and damage to my face from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm often sore, and it's not, something that's always that good for my body. So why do I do this? What do I get out of it? Well, you could say self-defense, but really, once you practice jiu-jitsu, you realize pretty quickly the self-defense part is really small and it's much more about the sport. So it's not really about self-defense. You could say that it's good for fitness, and yeah, you do move around, but really there's a lot of things that are way better for you fitness-wise. So why do I do it? Well, it's fun. I get to hang out with friends. I'm learning a really hard skill. There's all kinds of other intrinsic benefits I get from taking this thing that I was completely bad at, that didn't know anything about, and systematically getting better at it over a long period of time. You get value out of doing something that's really hard and succeeding at it. And so all of these other benefits you get because there is no shortcut. There is no shortcut to becoming good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You just have to go, train, learn the skill, keep showing up, putting in the work, and you do get better over time. So what have I gotten out of this decades-long pursuit of trying to become a writer? What have I gotten out of it? Well, sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not. It's a really hard skill to learn. In fact, I think it's the hardest skill I've ever acquired. But it's even gotten me a lot more than that, something I can't get from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and other things. And that's really learning how to confront myself, confronting my emotions, my darkness, figuring out how to take all of that stuff and turn it into a story that matters to me and matters to the people that read it. All of this stuff is extremely valuable to me as a person, even though I don't make a single dollar on all of this part. Like, yes, I want my books to come out and I want them to sell well and I want people to read them. But before any of that, the value I get is so high, it's greater than any dollar figure I could ever put on it. Same thing with jiu-jitsu, same thing with raising my kids and being married, and all of these things that I put a lot of time and effort and a lot of myself into. There is no dollar figure that I can put on those that would make them worth it, I guess, because all of the worth comes from something intrinsic. It comes from what I'm getting as a person out of these pursuits. Okay, so let's go back to that first sentiment I had when I was talking to my wife about ChatGPT and AI, and this idea that if a computer figures out how to write a book before me, or a great book before me, that I'm going to kill myself, right? And then that kind of starts asking this question of, well, why am I writing? Because lots of writers have already created great works of fiction, probably something I'll never create, all by themselves already, and that's not stopping me from pursuing it. So what does this have to do with computers? That doesn't really have anything to do with it, because the real reason I'm pursuing writing is for me. And this is why at StoryGrid, our whole motto is build the skills, write a book, leave a legacy. It's all about legacy. I realized that what I'm trying to create when I write is leaving behind something that I think will make the world a better place, that I'm proud to leave behind, and is something that only I could have created. And this is what's been interesting is Sean and I have talked about my new book, The Shithead, that's coming out in a couple weeks, and we've tried to figure out how to talk about the book. And he said, the problem with your book, Tim, is it's a category of one book. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to put it in any other box because it's something that is special, that stands apart, because only you could do it. Only I could have written the shithead. Nobody else could have done this. No computer, no other writer. I am the only one that could have done this. I'm the only one that's lived my life. I'm the only one that has my particular scars, that have gone to the dark places that I've gone, that's gone to the mountaintops that I've gone. I'm the only one that's ever lived my life. And therefore, what I write will be unique to me. And this is something AI will never be able to produce, because all they can do is regurgitate what they've been taught or even their own experiences. They can't ever become me. And so this is why we write. This is the second approach, and this is the approach that I think you should take too as well, is it's not about churning out commodities, it's about creating something that will leave a legacy that only you can create. Now, when I talk about AI on this video and in other places, I'm often sidestepping all of the moral and ethical issues about how these large language models are created. And that's for another video, and that's for somebody smarter than me to talk about and think about. The way I look at these things is whenever there's a new technology, there's usually a lot of moral and ethical issues that come up. But eventually, in the long run, the technology sticks around and we all have to kind of deal with it. And so I'm taking this approach that, hey, the AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Hopefully they can figure out ways to do it in better ways that aren't just stealing stuff from everybody. But no matter what happens, they're here to stay. We got to deal with it. So let's look at this as you as a writer. So even the idea that you would use AI to write your book for you, to me, is crazy. It's missing the entire point. The entire point of writing something is for you to write it, for you to go to the places you have to go to create something that only you can create. And if you try to get AI to do that on your behalf, you're missing the whole point of doing any of this. Don't try to shortcut something that shouldn't be shortcutted. That's the thing here. And if I were these writers just churning out commodity books that were cliche and kind of just rip off of other books and kind of packaging them together and trying to sell them as much as possible, I would be terrified of AI, and I would be trying to learn how to use it as fast as possible, because there's going to be this short little window where you can make a little money off of it. But as AI explodes, books coming out of AI are going to get better and better, and they're going to fully eclipse you as this person that just creates commodities. Where for those of us that are building the skill so that we can write a book that leaves a legacy that only we can live, you can't beat us, because you don't have our experiences and you don't have what we can bring to the table. Nobody else does, no AI does, and nobody or any AI ever will. So if you want to say something that only you can say, if you want to create a category of one book of your own, if you want to do this, you need to build the skills, write the book yourself, and leave a legacy that only you can leave. Now, if you're wondering next steps on this journey, if you're like, okay, I need to build these skills, I need to become a better writer so that I can write that category of one book, that's why we're here at StoryGrid. So the first thing I recommend you do is download our 13-point scene writing checklist. The number one building block of any great book is the scene. A book is basically a series of scenes, so focusing on getting great at writing scenes is a good place to start. So go to storygrid.com/checklist, and you can download for free our 13-point scene writing checklist, what we use to make sure you can write working scenes. I also have some training in there to show you how to use it with your own writing. If you want to keep going with these videos and some more training I have up, I recommend you click on the video that's showing up on your screen right now. That's a great place to start next. But either way, thanks for being a writer. Thanks for being a part of our community here at StoryGrid, and I'll see you next time.